Here are some facts. There are 30 teams in the NBA. Each season, 16 of those 30 teams make the playoffs. 8 teams from the Eastern Conference and 8 teams from the Western Conference. That leaves 14 teams that don't make the playoffs each season. Those 14 teams are placed into a lottery system in order to determine the order for the top 14 picks in the upcoming draft each year. We call them lottery teams if you cannot tell already. The worse the team's record is, the higher odds of getting the number 1 pick. And today, I'm going to be talking about my favorite player at each slot in the lottery. Notice how I said favorite and not best. So before you comment about how I made a mistake and how I'm wrong, just ask yourself how I could be wrong about an objective list. It's going to be a mix of newer players and older players. Some players you're going to expect, and some names you aren't going to expect. I hope you guys are ready, and if you are, let the show begin. We start our story with the most recent first overall pick, Anthony Edwards. Entering the league, scouts praised Anthony Edwards for his natural scoring ability, athleticism, and physical tools. He drew comparisons to guys like Dwayne Wade, Donovan Mitchell, Victor Oladipo, and Zach LaVine because basically he was getting compared to any athletic shooting guard that could do cool dunks and had an ability to score the basketball. Yeah, it was kind of lazy. However, it wasn't all perfect with him. People had concerns about shot selection and motor. At times he wouldn't use his 6'5", 225-pound frame to bully his way to the rim and would instead settle for tough mid-range jumpers, which is arguably the least efficient shot in the sport of basketball. However, despite all of this, he was still a very talented player. That was obvious enough. I will admit he was frustrating at times to watch on tape. At times, I got really mad while watching his tape because he had bad shot selection. And again, like I mentioned earlier, he wouldn't use his physical tools to his advantage. Did I think he was the best player in the draft? No. Was he who I would have taken with the first overall pick? No. Did I think he was an acceptable first overall pick? Yeah, in fact, he was my easy number 2 prospect in that draft. And on top of this, he's just a naturally funny guy that's very easy to root for, and you can see why I would put him in this video. Again, I did say this was about my favorite lottery picks, not the best lottery picks, because if it was the best, LeBron would have been in this slot. But he's not, because again, it's about my favorite. But with Anthony Edwards, he's a talented player with a great personality, and I'm rooting for him to find success in this league. And I'll be rooting for him no matter what happens in his career, whether he reaches his 100th percentile outcome or not, because he's just so easy to root for. I mean, just listen to this clip.
When I was young, yeah, it'd be hot.
Really? How good a baseball player were you?
I could have went to the MLB.
MLB?
Yeah.
I am not surprised.
I'm serious though. You think I'm joking? I'm serious.
No, I love your confidence. What positions did you play?
I played pitcher, shortstop, third base, and center field.
Those are the prime positions.
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, you were the best player on your team.
Now we talking.
You could hit the ball.
But I was 4th, 5th hitter. You know what that means.
Clean up. Yeah.
Straight clean up on aisle 3. Come get it.
Sounds like you're just an athlete.
Yeah.
Okay, ping pong, baseball, football, basketball.
Tennis, swimming, lacrosse, whatever you need me to play, I'm going to go do it. If there's some money on the line, I'm going to go do it.
Can you go?
Whatever you need me to do.
Okay. Hockey.
Whatever, on the ring, whatever you need me to do, it don't matter.
Got it.
Trash can ball, we can do whatever you want.
Trash can.
Cook food.
Go pro.
Cook food. That's something to do. I bet I'll be A1 from day one.
Kevin Durant entered the league around the same time I really became a serious basketball fan. He's a player I kind of grew up watching from the start. He is just such a unique player. He has the size of a power forward, the handle of a point guard, the shooting ability of a shooting guard, and can slash like a small forward. For a while, he was easily the most loved superstar in the league, as people viewed him as a rival for LeBron, who was the villain in the league at the time. I know it's hard to believe, but at one time, Kevin Durant was viewed as the nice guy, the hero in a sense. Again though, as many of you know, a few years later, KD would become the most hated player in basketball and become the villain of the league when he chose to leave the OKC Thunder for the Golden State Warriors. I hated the move at the time because, he just blew a 3-1 lead to that team, and, it was kind of weaker than what LeBron did with his decision, if we're being 100% honest with ourselves. However, I couldn't remain mad at him for too long. He still would remain one of my favorite players in the league, even if he made a move that basically killed parity in basketball. And, nothing has really changed. He's still one of my favorite players in the league. He's somebody I'll always watch on League Pass. He's somebody, whenever he's on national TV, I'll find time to watch him. And, he's somebody, one of a few players I would say that are directly involved in me, finding love for basketball and being a reason as to why I make content today. I think we all saw this one coming a mile away. It would have been a shock if it was anyone else. I could just mention the fact that Jaylen Brown is my favorite player in the NBA. He was the first prospect I ever evaluated, and he plays for the Boston Celtics, and end this section of the video right here. But it's more than just he's my favorite player. The improvement he's made over the years is just insane. He entered the league as a guy that wasn't a good shooter. He's now a 40% three-point shooter on 6 attempts. He didn't have a good handle entering the league. He's now good enough as a ball handler to create offense off the dribble consistently. If you told me he would be a legit 25 plus point per game scorer in this league, I would have called you crazy. If you told me he would be at this early of his career this good on offense, I would have called you insane. It's all really just a testament to his work ethic and his drive to be great. And he's an amazing human being. He stands up for what's right. He is a very vocal leader in the Black Lives Matter movement, which is very important, especially during these times. And he's extremely smart, he's vocal, and when it's all said and done, he's going to be my favorite player of all time if he isn't already. And he's not going to just have an impact on the basketball court as far as inspiring people, as far as his work ethic and his drive and showing improvement and showing that if you put the work in, you can improve. He's also going to inspire a lot of people for what he does off the court. And, things like that are important. And it's really what makes Jaylen Brown such a special human being and a special basketball player that has multiple All-Star teams in his future. By the way, vote Jaylen Brown for the All-Star team. I still feel like Jaren Jackson Jr. is probably one of the more underrated young players and one of the more underrated players in general in the league. He hasn't played this season obviously because of injury, but I still think he deserves way more recognition than he gets. He was a near 40% three-point shooter on 6.5 attempts in his second season. He has great perimeter skills for a big man. He has very versatile skills on defense. He's someone that has insane offensive and defensive versatility. He is far from perfect, however. He does need to cut back on the fouls. Yeah, that is something that's holding him back. He hasn't averaged 30 minutes per game in his career, I believe, simply because of the fact that he's always in foul trouble. So once he cuts that down, I think that the ceiling is the roof for him. He has a chance to be a guy that gives you 25 plus points per game, and then on defense has a chance to be a perennial defensive player of the year candidate. I think he has potential to be the best big man in the league, and potential to be one of the best players in the league. This combination of size, skill on both ends of the floor is just insane. And I think that he deserves to be talked about way more than he is. I think, we should be talking about him, and this may sound controversial, in the same breath as guys like Bam Adebayo, guys like Karl-Anthony Towns, or some of the better young big men in the league. I know Karl-Anthony Towns isn't really a young player anymore. I think he's like 25, but, I think he has a chance to be on that level, maybe even better. Because outside of my friends that are diehard basketball junkies and Memphis Grizzlies fans, he's just simply not talked about enough. During his time at Kentucky, De'Aaron Fox drew comparisons to another great Kentucky guard, John Wall, because of his speed. And Fox is a very fast player, to say the least. I would actually say he's probably the fastest player in the league. I think the only names are probably up there with him are like Kyra Lewis Jr. and maybe John Wall. He actually looks pretty fast for a guy coming off an Achilles tear, but he's more than just a speed guy. He's a decent scorer, and he's a decent passer. And he's also one of the most underrated players in the league. I would argue he is the most underrated player in the league. He's having an all-star level season this year, and he's not even top 10 in backward voting in the Western Conference, which is insane. He's improved every year of his career. He's led the Kings to better seasons than expected. The Kings were teams that were expected, to be top-end lottery teams that were competing for first overall picks. And because of how good he is, he has the Kings towards the back end of the lottery every year, which is tough to do in the Western Conference, mind you, because there are 45 win teams that don't make the playoffs in the West. So that really speaks to it. And on top of that, he's also being coached by Luke Walton, so he's able to lead a Kings team that's ran by Luke Walton and make him a new playoff team. That goes to show you how good he is already. He has all-star potential, all-NBA potential, actually, in my opinion. And people just don't seem to care. They just don't talk about him, which is so odd to me because he belongs in the conversation with a lot of the other young guards that get talked about. And I would argue he's even better than some of those young guards that get talked about more than he does. Another case of one of my favorite players making the list, Damian Lillard is my favorite point guard in the league, and one of my favorite players to watch in general. His ability to hit the toughest shots imaginable and still keep a straight face is just badass. He has been snubbed from 2 All-Star selections, one where he averaged 25 points a game and 7 assists per game, another season where he averaged 27 points a game and 6 assists per game. And mind you, he made the playoffs both years he was snubbed. In fact, he's only missed the playoffs once in his career so far. He's made the conference finals once. In the 2020 season, he had one of the best scoring seasons by a point guard ever. He averaged 30 points per game and 8 assists per game on 62.7 true shooting percentage. And this year, he's having another all-time great scoring season. I feel like the only time people bring up Damian Lillard is when Stephen Curry does something good, because people have an odd fixation on the idiots that think that Dame is better than Steph, which isn't true. Steph is better, and it is, but the thing is, you don't have to bring it up all the time. You don't have to be like, oh, people thought Damian Lillard was better every time Steph does something good. It's really just odd behavior. Damian Lillard is a special player in his own right and deserves to be talked about as such. And, you know, I definitely feel like, again, this is another situation of diehard NBA fans. They know how good he is. And even to an extent, I don't even think they realize how insane he is. Because he's had arguably the best 2-season scoring stretch by a point guard ever. And that includes guys like Steph Curry. That includes guys, you know, like Russell Westbrook, you know, guys like that. And Kyrie Irving even. Like, he's had arguably a better 2-season stretch of scoring than all of those point guards. Which really says something, because those guys are all going to be future Hall of Famers, and I think Damian Lillard is a lock for the Hall of Fame as well. Now, it is kinda ironic that I am having Steph as chapter 7 of this story when I just said the things I said about him in chapter 6. A lot of this though has to do with the fact that there weren't many options for the 7th overall pick, and you know, I do have an odd stance with Steph Curry. I find his supporters, which is more than just stands, I would say, like, it's not just the stands, it's just people that support him in general. I find them to be annoying because they tend to bash other star players to praise Steph Curry. Now, again, this speaks to a bigger issue in general, which is, you know, NBA fans in general, they say, oh, put some respect on this player's name and talk about how you need to stop, you know, disrespecting someone's greatness, and then in the same breath they'll bash another star player that's also brought up in that same conversation as the player that they're trying to, you know, raise their greatness for. But on the other hand, I find Steph Curry's haters a lot more annoying, and I find them way worse. They degrade his greatness all the time, simply because of the fact that A, he hasn't won any finals MVPs, which is a stupid argument because, you know, actually it's many reasons, and it's something I can make, you know, a whole video on I don't want to get into right now. But it doesn't change the fact that he changed the game. He made the 3-point shot popular. He isn't just spotting up though, he's taking deep contested threes, he's shooting off the dribble, and he remains extremely efficient, which is insane. He's shattering records, he's the greatest shooter of all time, and one of the most influential players of all time. And there's no way you can twist NBA history to say that he isn't, because there's just so much evidence that backs that up. Colin Sexton is the underdog story that most people actually don't know about. A lot of this has to do with the fact that most basketball fans only watch the NBA, and they'll watch like March Madness every once in a while, you know, to catch up on draft prospects at the end of the year. There aren't as many people, you know, that watch high school basketball and watch college basketball, which, to be fair, I understand why. The quality of basketball in college and in high school is not on the level, you know, of an NBA per se. However, I do want to talk about this underdog story because it's incredible. He was unranked at the end of his junior year. He goes from unranked to top 10 in the 2017 recruiting class after a summer that saw him set the EYBL scoring record. And that's wild because the EYBL circuit is arguably the best AAU circuit in the country, and he set the scoring record on that circuit against top level high school players, and he has been really interesting to me ever since. You know, he was amazing at Alabama, he goes 8th overall to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the views on him in the league have been mixed per se. Some people will think he's an empty stats guy. Some people think that he's the next great guard. I personally am somewhere in the middle on this conversation. I think he's going to be a very productive player for a very long time as a scorer. However, I think his lack of passing ability as a small guard will limit his ceiling. But I still find him very entertaining to watch. He's somebody that can go off for insane scoring performances we saw against the Brooklyn Nets, and has potential for even greater scoring performances in my opinion. And he's also fun to watch because he just plays with a passion for the game that can't be matched. Dennis Smith Jr. is probably the worst player on this list. His NBA career has gone far from what many, including myself, had expected it to be. And he's on his final chances in the NBA with the Detroit Pistons. However, I've been a Dennis Smith Jr. fan from the jump, which is not a pun I intended to make, but, you know, okay, I actually didn't mean to intend to make that pun. But his jumping ability is through the roof. It's at an all-time great level. He's the first player I've ever seen miss dunks because he jumps too high. His highlights are some of the most entertaining to watch. My favorite moment from him wasn't even when he was in the NBA, and that's not a slight at those moments he had in the NBA because he had some very exciting moments in the league. It was during his time at NC State. He walked into Cameron Indoor, which is one of the hardest environments for an away team to play in, and he led an upset against Duke, and it ended in one of the most disrespectful plays I've ever seen.
Personally, it didn't make it, so it doesn't matter. You foul before they can shoot a three. Down by 2. Lost on the dribble. Tatum turned it over. The exclamation point by Smith will not count, but that doesn't matter. NC State wins in Cameron for the first time since 1995.
Also, there is a video called Do College Basketball, Good Luck Guarding Dennis Smith Jr. I would highly recommend watching that video. It is one of the most insane mixtapes I have ever seen. Cam Reddish is one of my favorite players in the league, besides the fact that almost all my most viewed videos on this channel are about him. He's an extremely fun player to watch. According to his high school competition, he was basically Michael Jordan.
Who the hardest person you had to guard?
Be honest, man. Could be when you're freshman.
Cam Reddish. I told you, everybody gonna say
people.
Everybody
when you play against Cam?
Everybody gonna say Cam Reddish.
DC. I ain't gonna talk about that though. Cause he was trying to cook. I ain't trying to violate with
Bro,
him.
he gave me 44.
When did you
40. 40. How many he gave you? Shit, he might have gave him more than mine.
40.
How many he gave you?
Well, he didn't give me 40. He gave like the person who guarded him, but I'm still on the team, so I'm a part of it. I ain't even talking what you gave her, but it was more than 44. Nah, Cam Reddish is different, bro. He's different. Yeah, he different.
He had a rough year at Duke and had a rough start to his rookie season. However, when healthy, he does show all-star potential. He has a great defensive ability. He was great defensively as a rookie. I think he's been good defensively this year. He is one of the best scoring packages in the league. However, his finishing ability is subpar to say the least. Like, if his finishing ability was as good as his scoring package, he might be a top 3 scorer in the league already. Despite all this, I've been rooting for him from the jump, and he was someone I was constantly defending during draft season because people were low on him despite not knowing the full context of his situation. Gilgeous-Alexander is my biggest accomplishment when it comes to covering the draft. I was always super high on him, even back when he was committed to play at Florida instead of Kentucky before he flipped his commitment. back when he wasn't even a top 30 recruit in the country. And, you know, he's proved a lot of people wrong. He wasn't expected to be a one and done at Kentucky, ends up being a one and done at Kentucky. He's a very unique player. He's not the most athletic, doesn't have the deepest scoring bag, not the most physically imposing, yet he's still a very efficient scorer, despite the fact that nothing about his skill set suggests that he should be. The thing with me when he was coming out of Kentucky was, and this was my only real concern with him, because I had him as a top 7 prospect in that draft, was I wondered how his style of play would translate from Kentucky to the NBA. Because he played at this very slow, controlled pace that allowed him to control games at Kentucky. I didn't know if that would work in the league. And he has been able to do it in the league. He's a very unique person both on and off the court. He has funky vibes in a good way both on and off the court. He's one of the best young players in the league. And I think his ceiling as a player is higher than a lot of people think. Like, I definitely think this is an all-NBA level ceiling kind of player. From one unique player to another, we go from Gilgeous-Alexander to somebody a lot of people were comparing to Gilgeous-Alexander, Tyrese Halliburton. Even if I never really agreed with those comparisons, because I don't think that, you know, Halliburton has the scoring ability of Gilgeous-Alexander. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. Tyrese Halliburton is a unique player, and that may not even do it justice. His skill set is very unique and very odd, because it's two things you wouldn't expect to correlate: spot-up shooting and elite passing. An off-guard passer that's a spot-up shooter. His handle isn't good enough to be a primary ball handler, and in fact it's not even on the level you would expect, or even close to the level you would expect to somebody that has his passing ability. But because he's an elite passer, this makes him so unique. He's the ultimate secondary playmaker. He has these jump passes that he does regularly, and for most players it doesn't work, but for him, it does. And they are very fun to watch. His vision is off the charts for someone at this stage of his career, and the views on him are a bit interesting. Some think he has a super high ceiling. I don't think he has a super high ceiling personally, because I don't think the handle's good enough. He doesn't create a lot of separation, doesn't have a lot of burst when attacking the rim. But I still think he's a very good young player. Like, just because I don't think he has a higher ceiling doesn't mean I don't think he's good or gonna be good. He's gonna be good. Like, trust me, he was the safest, or one of the safest players in the draft, I would say. He's gonna be very valuable for a long time, and it could create a whole new type of archetype in the game of basketball. Donovan Mitchell is one of the most entertaining players in the league. I really don't think that's something that is questioned necessarily. He has an ability to score the basketball at a high level and has elite out-of-this-world athleticism. He's an anomaly as a small guard because he's only 6'1", but has super long arms. I believe it's like 7 feet or something. That's his wingspan. It's probably why he gets the Spider-Man comparisons as well. So because of those long arms, it makes up for the lack of height that he has at the 2-guard position, and allows him to be 6'1" and play at the 2-guard at a high level. He can be inconsistent at times, I will admit, but he's also unstoppable when he's locked in. Went to Booster Academy, which is a place I considered taking a post-grad year for education reasons after high school, before ultimately deciding to go straight to college. He's kind of a forgotten name because he plays in Utah, because I'll be quite honest with you, no one really cares about Utah. They're having the best regular season of any team this year, and nobody cares, so that goes to tell you how small the market is in Utah. But what makes him fun is that he kind of made him, well, I messed up my words, but like, you know, he was something that came out of nowhere is what I wanted to say before I messed up. He was drafted 13th overall and made an immediate impact that few saw coming. Had a wonderful rookie year that was up there for Rookie of the Year. Ben Simmons wasn't as amazing as he was, and he developed into an all-star quicker than anyone could have imagined. Bam Adebayo is an interesting player. He was a top 5 guy in high school. He committed to Kentucky, which is basically a factory for the NBA at this point. And then, he had a really good freshman season at Kentucky alongside guys like Fox and Monk. And then he goes 14th overall in the draft. But people viewed that pick as a reach. I remember a lot of people were like, why was he going this high? Because he had like a mid to late first round grade. Many did not expect him to be a lottery pick. And Miami obviously knew what they were doing. And fun fact, I actually had him going 14th overall to the Heat. And, I was higher on him the most. But even I did not see what was coming. People forget this. He was Hassan Whiteside's backup for his first 2 seasons. Yes, the guy that now is the backup in Sacramento to guys like Rashawn Holmes and Marvin Bagley III was the guy that was starting over Bam Adebayo in his first 2 seasons. However, by his 3rd season, he showed us things that many did not expect. He showed passing ability that many did not expect. He has defensive versatility, which actually people saw from the start basically. But what it taught me in his 3rd season was he created a new archetype for big men. Because outside of the guys like Karl-Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid, and Nikola Jokic, defensive bigs were traditionally viewed as, guys that block shots at the rim. Bam Adebayo changed that completely. Not only could he defend the paint, he could defend on the perimeter. He was defending guards. He locked up Steph Curry on a few plays. And that's what makes him so special. He has great passing ability for a big man. He has elite defensive versatility, and he created an archetype for the non-offensive dominant big that really changed the way a lot of people view the draft now. Because if you aren't an elite offensive big as a prospect now, you have to be able to defend in multiple positions, which is why people were so high on Nick Okongwu. And Okongwu went higher than probably he would have in previous years because of the success of Bam Adebayo. And I have a lot of, hope for Okongwu, but that's a whole other story for a whole other time. But with Bam, this archetype, killed the drop big. And, he's going to be awesome for a long time. I think he's going to be potentially someone we look back on as, and this is a bit of a stretch because Kevin Garnett was awesome, but he could be this generation's Kevin Garnett. I had a lot of fun making this documentary. It's probably my favorite up to this point. Granted, I've only made 3, maybe 4 documentaries up to this point. So that doesn't really say much. I do plan on making a bunch more of these as the years go on. But I really love this one because of the fact that it was about my favorite lottery players and not who I thought was the best. Which gave me a lot more freedom about what I could talk about. Because if it was just a video about, the best, it wouldn't have been this long. Not even close. But not even like half as long as this video will be. Because it's just been so robotic. But with it being about my favorite, I just felt like I had a lot more to say. And, these are 14 amazing chapters, in my opinion at least. About 14 players that I feel like are my favorite at each slot. Some I like a lot more than others. And that's okay because, I was, again, kind of limited because I can only choose 1 player for each slot. But, I talked about players that a lot of you guys probably know about, players that, people probably forgot about, players that are great, players that weren't so great, players that lived up to expectations, players that didn't live up to expectations. And the thing is, I want to make more documentaries like this. Now, this one took me a very long time to make. It took me 2 weeks, partially because of the fact that, I was making other videos for the channel. I was also doing school stuff, so I had to balance a bunch of things. So it probably would have maybe taken me a week if I didn't have to worry about those other things. But still, that's a very long time to work on something like this, from writing the script to making the graphics, to editing, to recording, all of it. It took a lot of time. So I would appreciate it if you would like this. It means a lot. Like, people don't understand how much likes mean. So if you can like this, subscribe if you haven't already. Maybe share it on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever. I would really appreciate that because I did put a lot of time into this. And I put this part at the end because I didn't want to shamelessly plug it in the beginning of the video. So again, if you enjoyed that, thank you. Share it, share it with your friends, family, whoever. But with that being said, have a nice day.